Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call the Board of Health meeting to order. This is the Thursday, September 15th, Board of Health meeting. And
9:15.
yeah, September 15th.
Yeah, you said.
Did I? Oh, September 15th. Board of Health meeting. And I'd like to remind everybody out there that this meeting is being recorded by video and audio. And also, if you are joining us remotely, provisions have been made to conduct these meetings remotely also. And for roll call purposes, board members, could you please acknowledge that you are here as I see you? Meredith Lepre.
Here.
Jim Cooper.
Here.
Our new board member representing from the Select Board, Brooke Moore.
I'm here.
And Carrie McKenna.
Here.
Okay. So I will turn it over. Before we get started, is there anything that's not on the agenda that anybody would like to bring up out in the audience? John, anything else?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, then we'll go to the agenda and review of the minutes of August 18th. Any revisions or corrections?
None that I know of. I think there was that late email on Sachem Road that wanted to wait until next month.
Oh, yeah, that'll be next month. But this is for the minutes of last
I'm sorry.
review of the minutes of last month's.
Nothing that I know of.
Okay.
Good.
Can I get a motion to accept?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Meredith Lepre?
Yes.
Jim Cooper?
Yes.
Brooke Moore? Because you weren't here, right? Carrie McKenna?
Yes.
And Steve Isco says yes. Okay, loan application for 17 Bayberry. Ellen Way, septic to sewer.
Yep. It's a basic septic to sewer loan application that we typically always receive. We just wanted to note that it says the property owner is 15 Bayberry Lane for the address of 17 Bayberry Lane. So
There's two separate
right, and there's two
ones here.
Yeah, and we
We're
have
going to take them one at a time.
two properties. Yes. Yeah.
Is there any issue with that kind of clumping? I mean, I'm not unfamiliar with the loan application process.
There's been discussions about these loans going to the primary residency of, someone's primary residency on Nantucket. So, that's the only thing we bring up on this. But for the most part, in my experience, they've all pretty much been approved. But Chairman has much more experience than I do on that one.
So there's no problem with financing, doing both of these?
Finance.
No.
Right.
What are they want a loan application.
Right.
Separate loan.
Two
applications?
separates.
Yeah, one for each property. Yeah, but it's two.
We'll take them one
yeah,
at a time.
Yeah.
This one's 17 Bayberry.
All right.
So this one is not their residence? Is,
According to GIS, yeah.
But it is in separate ownership.
Right, correct.
so if I may ask a question, so are the loans only for primary residences, or have they been
Well, I think
given
that's,
for?
we look out for the environment first, obviously, but, I think maybe it's a discussion we need to have moving forward, just because we know that funds are going to be limited moving forward, as Roberto explained to us last meeting. So, my opinion and some other staff members feel, I think it's something that needs to be on the table for discussion, with funds running out and who gets them and who doesn't, So
Well, I'm a little confused. My question is, which one of these is the primary residence? 15 or 17?
15.
15 is the primary
Yeah.
residence? Okay.
So can I
Go
share a
ahead, Brooke.
thought?
Yep.
So if there's going to be a difference, right, in treatment, whether it's the primary residential address of the applicant, I would also be curious, if they're not in residence in the property, how is it occupied? Is it occupied on a year-round basis, or is it is it used seasonally? Because that might make a difference too in priorities. I sort of see multiple tiers of priority, but clearly a residence that's, say, rented year-round is also of value to the community. And so I would say primary residence as the first priority, and then a non-occupied by the owner, but rented year-round or occupied year-round as a secondary priority, and then seasonal residences maybe as a third tier of.
Yeah, that's something that we should, like John said, bring up at a different time, because I do think people have used the loan money, especially when they've had hydraulic failures, and
Right.
we've given the loan out to people that it wasn't their primary residence.
Mhm.
They were, especially on a failure. So,
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess first.
so
and
I
foremost,
think
it's-
that's something we should bring up at, maybe the next board meeting, where we could put those triggers in place, but we'll take these ones right now
All right, I'll make a
as they
motion
are.
to accept.
Okay. On 17 Bayberry, could I get a second?
I made the motion.
All right, could I get
Yeah.
a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, as I see you, Meredith Lepre,
Yes.
Jim Cooper,
Yes.
Brooke Moore,
Yes.
Carrie McKenna,
No.
and Steve Visco says yes. 15 Bayberry, which is same thing.
Yeah, this is,
All right.
Homer Ray the third property. So same thing.
All right. If there's no questions, I'll make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Right.
Meredith Lepre,
Yes.
Jim Cooper,
Yes.
Brooke Moore,
Yes.
and Carrie McKenna.
Yes.
Steve Visco says yes. Okay, loan application for 15 Massachusetts Ave.
This one's for a tight tank, Mass Ave over the bridge, where they're forced to go into a tight tank situation. So there's a loan request for that. This one, I will say, is not the primary residence for these folks, as it's listed on GIS. So that's one concern staff would like to bring up with the board.
And I'm assuming it's a seasonal residence.
Most likely, I mean, if
That's
not the
usually out
primary.
there.
Yeah. So,
Well, if we've been giving it to people all along that doesn't have a primary residence, I think we just have to agree to give it to them.
Right, do we know how much money is left in our revolving,
That's what
that
I'm
fund?
wondering.
It's not much.
I thought I remembered Roberto commenting somewhere around 400,000.
400,000,
So-
something is what he said last meeting.
So I think we're just concerned about, how much more is going to come in, and, how much we have left in the meantime till, there's more. So,
Right, well, it runs out, and then people will have to figure out other ways if they're gonna finance it. So I would just think we should move on with this one and see what
Yeah, we don't have
happens.
any choice. I
Yeah.
don't think so.
I mean, I know this family's been having a hard time getting people to get the work done, and after we sent the letters out, and
Mhm.
this was not a hydraulic failure, but a separation issue out there. So,
and it's certainly a sensitive area, that's for sure. So,
yes. So, can I get a motion to approve the tight tank?
You want to make a motion? I'll make the motion.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second it.
There you go.
Okay, all in favor by roll call. Meredith Lepre,
Yes.
Jim Cooper,
Yes.
Brooke Moore,
Yes.
Carrie McKenna,
Yes.
and Steve Visco says yes. Okay, we've got a variance request for 24 Madawi Creek Road, just a setback from property line.
Yeah, from the street. So it's not a direct abutter setback. I'm not sure if you looked at the plans or not, but it's essentially going in the same spot. I believe it's a pit right now. And where the engineer has placed it, it's shoehorned in between two wetlands to meet the 100-foot setback. So actually, sorry, I'm new to this whole scenario, but I believe Don Bracken's here to speak on it. So,
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
Yeah, exactly. You know, what John just said, we were fortunate enough to just be able to squeeze in enough chambers for a 6-bedroom design here. There was an old leaching pit that fit in that little triangle originally. So we're forced obviously to ask for variance to the street line. It's a 40-foot wide roadway layout. So we're asking for a setback of about 3 feet from the street line rather than 10. And then there's an additional 12 or 13 feet to the actual street pavement on the ground that's existing. So that's
Yeah, this is an IA system too also, right?
correct. Yep.
Is this a new house?
No, it's a repair, I
Just
think.
repair, okay.
Is there any increases in the size of the house in terms of bedrooms?
No. They are proposing some renovations to the house and proposing a pool in the back. So I'm assuming it would have triggered Board of Health review and upgrade for being in the harbor watershed area. So taking care of both things at once, the leaching and the upgrade for the IA system.
And you're gonna, and maybe it's wrong board. Is there any concern just about the amount of stone and non-pervious services that are going in with the pool, the patio, and the proposed stone walk in the back? I mean, there's a lot of area that is not good for drainage.
We did get approval from the Conservation Commission already on this project. But if you look closely at the plan, there's a lot of existing driveway area already there that's going to be removed and revegetated. That's actually, you know, closer to the wetland than where the proposed parking area is going to be. It will be a pervious parking area, and we are proposing a catch basin dry well system to collect and infiltrate the runoff from the driveway.
Okay, thank you.
It doesn't exist today.
I think Meredith has her hand up.
Go ahead, Meredith.
I think you're on mute,
You're
Meredith.
muted.
It was from earlier to see if we could put that on the agenda for about the loans on next month.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I think we discussed that about putting the loans on for
On the
next
agenda. Yeah.
month's agenda.
Policy, yeah. I have a question.
Go ahead, Brooke.
So being new to this, the variance isn't being requested in order to make way for the pool. This couldn't be located where the pool is going to be located because of the 100-foot. So I guess my question
no.
is, are they coming for a variance because they want to have a pool?
Well, I'm not really in this scenario. I don't believe. I mean, there's other things contending with this. There's two wetlands.
Yeah.
So this is, the engineers placed it in the best scenario to meet, you know, the setbacks farthest for the wetlands. Property wise, it's really the best place for this
I
leach
think what
facility
the
to go.
question was, if the pool wasn't there, could they meet all the things they needed
Without the variance?
without a variance?
No, they'd still need a variance. They'd need a variance then for being within 100 feet of the wetland.
That's what it looked like to me. I just wanted to ask.
So
Okay.
this one's more of a Title V variance. Our local setback for wetlands is 100 feet instead of 50, which is 50 is for Title V. It's 100 per our local regulation. So, but anytime you go within 10 feet of the street on the leach field, you need a variance. So in this scenario, I think it's meets maximum feasible compliance. So
right.
it's kind of the best situation.
Okay,
So,
great.
Yeah, and
Thanks.
it's, you know, even though we're granting the variance, it's still on their property. We're just granting the relief from the 10 feet.
No, I understand. I just would be concerned if they were choosing a location that required a variance in order to get a feature that, you know what I'm saying? So Jim gets what I'm asking. So, thanks.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor by roll call, Meredith Lepre,
Yes.
Jim Cooper,
Yes.
Brooke Moore,
Yes.
Carrie McKenna,
Yes.
and Steve Isco says yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Don. Okay, variance request for 9 Columbus, also setbacks from the wetlands.
Yeah, pretty similar scenario, trying to put the leach basically as far away from the pond as possible, which is a benefit. But the setbacks in Nantucket are, 50 feet for a leach for property lines. So this will be, I believe, 10 feet. I believe Art Gasparo might be here to speak on that.
We got you, Art, go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. I believe this was Jeff Blackwell's project.
Oh,
I mean, if he's not here, I did review the plans and would be happy to help represent it if you'd like. As Mr. Hedden explained, for an upgrade of an existing system of equivalent capacity, and also would be an IA system.
yeah,
Yeah,
we have no objections.
okay.
I think it's maximum feasible compliance.
Yeah.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the 9 Columbus Ave setback?
I'll make a motion to approve 9 Columbus.
Can I get a second? Okay, all in favor by roll call, Meredith Lepre,
Yes.
Jim Cooper,
Yes.
Carrie McKenna,
Yes.
and Brooke Moore.
Yes.
Steve Isco says yes. 9 Columbus, all set. Okay, variance request for 110 Surfside Road.
This one's a bedroom credit in the wellhead. The lot, I believe, is 105,000 square feet, which would be 10 bedrooms on a conventional. And I believe they're asking for 12. And I think this is the one you're here for, Art, if I'm correct, hopefully.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair and board. Yes, as described, this is right near the corner of Surfside Road and Boulevard, 105,000 square foot lot, and you would otherwise be installing a 10-bedroom conventional system. And our intention at this time is to install a 12-bedroom IA system. The request would be technically for less than 15 bedrooms, though that's not, what we intend to apply for. The IA system, as we laid out, and you look at the equivalents, because of the reduction in nitrogen that you get by using the IA, even though you have more bedrooms, it would ultimately contribute less nitrogen to the environment than a 10-bedroom conventional through the use of the alternative technology for the nitrogen reduction in the waste flow. I'm happy to address questions or concerns, and I believe this is consistent with this other approvals within the wellhead protection district, not necessarily the this
How big
isn't
is the
within
lot?
one of the harbor watersheds.
How big was the lot, Art?
It's 105,000 square feet.
Yeah, it's big, yeah.
And this is currently a 10-bedroom house, correct?
It's not currently a 10-bedroom house, but there is construction, residential redevelopment happening at the property, and we could otherwise by right install a 10-bedroom conventional system, which wouldn't have the advanced treatment component that a larger system, if you were to grant this relief, then the larger system would provide the additional treatment of the wastewater.
Are there plans to make it a 15-bedroom house?
No, there's plans to make it a 12-bedroom, and it's not just one house. When we talk about through you, Mr. Chair, this is flows that would be contributed from a main house, a secondary dwelling, perhaps a pool cabana or something like that. So it'd be an aggregate.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor by roll call, Meredith Lepre,
Yes.
Jim Cooper,
Yes,
Brooke Moore,
I'm going to abstain. I just don't feel like I understand it enough.
Carrie McKenna,
Yes.
and Steve Visco says yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Art.
And if I may, through you, Mr. Chair, if any board member ever wanted to talk, not necessarily about a particular application, but to gain a better understanding of the situation, either, I'd be more than happy to discuss that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, restriction of 167 Surfside Road to IA system.
Yeah, this, I believe Dan Malloy is here for this one. This is one where it was two properties, 11 Western Ave and 167 Surfside. There's currently a 4-bedroom house, 4-bedroom system. The house is on 11 Western Ave, as well as the tanks, but the leach facility is on 167 Surfside. And now 11 Western Ave was approved for a 4-bedroom system to have a 4-bedroom house. 167 Surfside Road is like little over 10,000 square feet, so it's big enough for a 1-bedroom conventional system. My feeling is both these lots kind of, the lot straddled, or the system straddled both these lots. So I think it's, the best case scenario for the environment is that this property is restricted to an IA system. 11 Western's already restricted to a IA due to maximum feasible compliance because it's an undersized lot for 4 bedrooms. But I can have Dan speak to that as well.
We
Go ahead.
talked about this at like either July, maybe. But I remember, and there were 2 applications, neighboring lots. And I'm going to express the same concern that, we're approving within, the kind of guidelines and putting a better system in, but we are jamming a lot of people and septic place into a small corner. I mean, when you look at the maps, these properties are not on a big lot. I know the area well.
Right.
And I'm concerned just about the general, how much can we put on a small island in the bigger picture? And we're kind of,
Well, you're right. Yeah, I understand that. These are lots of record and they
Yeah.
have rights.
well, I know,
Right.
but there's an island we want to keep going too. So, so it's probably that future discussion type thing, but how do we get hold of it? Because if every lot can go to its max, we don't have capacity.
Yeah.
And that's just, this is almost a real good example, but this is really a small cluster of, I think, 4 lots in a area, and we're on our 3rd approval in
Right.
3 months. So,
Yeah, I think I'll let Dan speak to that. I think it's a matter of a 4-bedroom system was existing. That's why I feel, and staff feels that these should be restricted to IA systems to improve the environment the best, based on the whole scenario. But I'll let Dan
Yeah,
talk.
thank you.
Go ahead, Dan.
Well, I don't have too much to add. I think you covered it all. It's a lot of record. I think it's not the last board meeting, maybe the one before that, the board approved a very similar application to the west of this at 4 Canonicus. Very similar situation, pre-existing grandfather lot. And the board approved a 1-bedroom system on that lot with a small house, IA system, as well as a 1-bedroom deed restriction. So that was put in place at Fort Canonicus. And our expectation here is it's essentially the same application. You have a 1-bedroom system. It's an IA system, and we're putting the 1-bedroom deed restriction in place.
Any other questions for?
No, I'm good.
And Chair, if I can add, I mean, this is going above and beyond. It's restricting the property to an IA system to have a better system
Yeah.
for the environment based on the scenario. So it's really the board making a restriction on the property if you choose to vote that way. Because essentially they can do a 1-bedroom conventional
Yeah.
on this lot.
No, they'd be restricted to a 1.
Bedroom IA. Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I get a motion to accept the restriction on 167 to keep it an IA system on the 10,000 square foot lot.
I'll move to approve.
Second,
Okay, all in favor by roll call, Meredith Lepre,
Yes.
Jim Cooper,
yes.
Brooke Moore,
Yes.
Carrie McKenna,
Yes.
and Steve Visco says yes. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, 8H is going to be next month. And, okay, next we have Next Level Water Sports, operating camp without a permit, contesting the ticket.
Yep. I think there's folks in the audience for this one.
Could you just, when you come to the microphone, just say your name so we can, for the record?
Sure. Mr. Chair, and fellow board members, I'm Jim Mondani. I'm here representing Next Level Sports. Both the owners are here to answer any questions or address anything that I can't answer. We're here to appeal the order in violation of the recreation provisions of the mass regulations. The activities that they've conducted, we feel, don't fall within these regulations and therefore don't require a license and is not in violation. The regulations, in our opinion, are geared toward a more traditional camp and are not set up for something of this limited activity, which is different things on the boat, such as kiteboarding and things like that are offered up. My clients offered these semi-private classes that are 4 days, 3 hours long each day, and they take them out on a boat, 2 participants to each boat. And on that basis, we just don't feel like it violates the regulations. From a technical standpoint, the regulations come into play if there are 5 or more children involved. And in this case, there's just two children to the boat, although there can be multiple participants. And also, for it to constitute a camp, it needs to be one location. They operate all over the harbor. So again, it doesn't fit that traditional camp that these regulations are intended to cover, or a camp that operates in this manner. Overall, if you look at these regulations, they just wouldn't apply to this type of business. Again, they're doing other things. This is one aspect of it. These regulations have over 90 separate standards that need to be complied with by camps. And just as an example, I looked up the housing regulations, and there are only 50 standards that need to be complied with in order to adhere to the code. So these regulations are pretty onerous to this type of business. I've looked, the department licenses other camps, but they're the more traditional camps that you would expect here on island. And so what we're asking for really is in the appeal for the board to make this determination that this particular regulation doesn't apply to this part of their business, and therefore they don't require a license. Just as a aside, they are required to obtain a license for a kite surfing business through the town bylaws. And of course, they need to comply with Coast Guard regulations, anything the harbor master sets forth. So it's not like they're running free and outside of any scope, any regulations. To us, it's similar to either the surf camps that are offered here on island, or the sailing camps, again, which I don't believe require licensure, that they don't have licenses, and it would be more in keeping with those types of businesses.
I guess my first question, maybe it's you, John, is what is the price, what's the cost of a permit for camp?
20 for to apply for the permit. Okay, and I'd have to look at our fee schedule. I think it's $100 for a recreational camp. I'll have to look.
So similar to the violation, the issue isn't the fine they received or the cost of obtaining the permit. It's just jumping through all the hoops of the regulations.
What does the permit say from the town?
Let's see here. You mean the permit or the regulations? The permit is just a one-page.
The regulation. What is the regulation, town regulation?
So the town enforces regulations that are set forth by the State Board of Health. And without going into detail, they range everything from making sure there's a medical staff on call or consultation, similar to what a camp would have, a medical tent, 2 bathrooms for each gender. And those are just an example of them, but there are literally 90 separate items that are required. And we just don't believe that this type of business falls within that category.
I think, Mr. Chairman, if Jake can
Yeah, Jake, why
put
don't you
together
give
a
us a
lot of
little
information,
background
and
on
he
it?
was working with us.
Jake Visco, Health Inspector, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So this was just basically this is a ticket for advertising as a camp, and under regulations 105 CMR 430, which are the minimum standards for recreational camps for children. I find them a license required. It says that no recreational camp for children shall operate without a license from the Board of Health. Any person or program that promotes or advertises itself as a camp, even if it does not meet the criteria for a recreational camp as defined within 105 CMR 430, must be licensed as a recreational camp for children prior to operating. So they were advertising as a camp for 3 years. As far back as 2019, they were calling themselves a camp. So just by that alone, they need to have a license through us.
Yeah, I'm looking at the webpage on the packet, and it says Water Sports Kids Camp, sign me up for camp. The ultimate summer camp for your kids to have fun on the water. That's 3 times in 3 sentences.
So just based on that alone, and that's what it was about. And they applied for a camp license and decided to pull back because of the extensive because of the amount of obstacles that they had to meet the regulations, which many camps do go through. And so.
Brooke?
So if they were not advertising this as a camp, per se, then this whole issue would go away. Is that?
Unless they operated 4 days a week for at least 2 hours and had at least 5 kids. And yeah, a few other things like that. But even if you don't advertise as a camp, you still could end up having to apply for a license.
Okay, so another question is 2 kids per boat, how many boats?
I
would ask
requested
the
a
operator.
lot of information and that
Yeah.
wasn't provided.
So right now they have 3 boats.
Okay, so that's
So
6
it'll be up to
kids.
6 kids.
Okay,
I just want to address the advertising as a camp. They realized this year that they can't do it. It was purely from a marketing standpoint, right? Parents love the idea of camp for kids. Really, it's semi-private lessons for multiple days, similar to surfing, similar to sailing, but they market it as a camp.
Go ahead, Brooke.
Well, the thing is, if you market it as a camp, then the parents think it's a camp, right?
right.
I think, sorry, Meredith has her hand.
Oh, sorry.
Like,
Who wants to?
Hang on,
Oh, sorry.
Meredith?
My question, are they routinely taking out 6 kids? My question was about how many boats, because I mean, it very clearly says if it's 5 or more kids and you're taking them out 4 days a week for a couple of hours, that seems to fit the standard of a camp. So I get, you answered my question.
If I could, I'll add, the definition of a camp per the code is operates on site for more than 2 hours, but less than 24 hours a day, operates for at least 4 days during a 14 consecutive day period in a city or town, and meets the definition of a recreational camp for children, which is over 5, which is 5 or more children. So, and I believe Jake did reach out to DEP on that as well, that agreed that the advertising constituted enough to be considered a camp. So
I looked at the regulations. That these are fairly new, or these definitions are fairly new since 2018. And if you were to apply it to this type of business, then you're really going to open it up and have a number of these businesses have to jump through these hoops to meet the regulations. It's not just the application and licensure. They're fine. They've actually been in contact with the health department all along, and they want to be above board. They're not trying to be unsafe or by any means. It's just these regulations are really geared toward overnight camps, full day camps. And if you look at the licenses that the town has administered, they're all the classic camps, the Murray Camp, the Boys and Girls Club, camps like that. But there are a lot of other businesses like this one who have one aspect where it's teaching a kid to kiteboard, and suddenly they're going to need to follow in these regulations and have a medical tent and have a physician and require full background checks on their counselors. But there's a number of additional things. Counselors have to have experience being counselors just to get the job. And this isn't necessarily their total business. And I think that's the concern. And they want to comply. It's just things like 2 bathrooms for every gender. There aren't many spaces out here that offer that. And that's their concern. If they could comply easily, they would happily do it. It's just going to be very difficult for them to comply the way they're doing things now.
Yeah, go ahead. Please, could you just announce your name for the record?
My name is John Beery, co-owner of Next Level Water Sports. So we've offered kite lessons, wakeboarding lessons, e-foiling lesson. We have like these electric powered hydrofoils teaching people athletics. And we've operated out here since 2016. In 2020, we came up with the idea of, let's take kids out, and we called it water sports camp. We had no idea of the regulations stepping into it. This year we went on the radio offering scholarships for local kids to attend. And the next day, Mr. Visco reached out. From that moment, I spent a solid month going line item by line item through CMR 105-430 with every intention of complying. And we ran into these pitfalls of 2 bathrooms for each gender. And the challenge for us is we are on the water coaching every single day, where we're out in the harbor. We have the ability to go utilize toilets downtown at the public pier if someone needs to go number 2. But there were certain structures, like a permanent medical tent. We're on boats. We don't have the ability to pitch a permanent tent. So there were just certain structural things. And what ended up happening was I spoke with Mr. Visco. We had a very productive conversation in saying, it looks like this year we are not going to meet these requirements, and we are comfortable with that, and we want to shut down camp. And that's what we did. We poured through our website and we removed every instance of marketing of it, and we messed up. We left one, and we had it throughout the entire website. And the second we saw that, we took it down. Again, with the intention of complying. And we contacted parents and fit them into our traditional lesson schedule. And when you look at a traditional camp, you have kids on site for 8 hours. You have large groups of kids across 1 to 2 instructors. You look at comparables such as Strong Wings, they're out biking all throughout the island. They're not bringing 2 bathrooms for each gender with them. They're not bringing a permanent medical tent. That being said, our goal is to comply. This fine, we're happy to pay it. What matters to us is we love these sports. There's a clear need on this island for more camps. Nantucket Community Sailing is booked absolutely solid. Strong Wings has a wait list. Everyone has a wait list. And our goal is to go and come back and work productively with the health department and figure out how can we run a commensurate professional operation that brings a need, satisfies a need for the community. And we messed up. We missed one of the instances of our water sports camp marketing. And you see that screenshot. The second we saw that, when we received it, it was removed. Mr. Visco came to where we offer our traditional lessons and was questioning our staff in front of our clients, which I didn't feel comfortable with. And that's why we retained Mr. Mandani. But flat out, like, we're more than happy to pay this fine. What matters to us is that we have a strong footing to move forward and put forward a water sports camp that adds to the town and satisfies a need for kids to get out and enjoy the water, doing really healthy, fun things.
Yeah, so just let me add one thing. And you can always come to this board and ask for a variance.
And that's
from anything, right?
100%. And that I actually completed a variance request. I submitted the fee. I submitted the camp licensure application fee. The check was never cashed. And that was one of the things. But in chatting topically with Mr. Visco, I received the impression of this is not going to get approved. And the other big challenge we had is we put forward a radio ad offering a scholarship out of our own pockets because we want more local kids to ride, and it's an expensive activity. And just given the condensed timeline and the lead up to the season, it wasn't really like they have so much going on in their own office. Like, you guys have a lot going on. Just the timeline wasn't going to work out. So the marketing of it was an oversight on our part. We amended our operations to try and comply and apply our traditional lesson structure. And our hope is going into this fall, like we had a conversation with Sheila Lucy today, we want to tick every box and be a professional organization. And we started our company in 2016 doing something we really love. And we want to keep doing it and just add to the town. So that's
Brooke?
So you've referenced traditional lessons. What's the difference between what we're talking about here and your traditional lesson structure?
So when we do a lesson, for a kiteboard lesson, a winging lesson, so a winging, I'm not sure if you've ever seen them. It kind of looks like a bat wing flying around. You might have seen them on the harbor. We do our lessons in 3-hour blocks. And the reason we do a 3-hour block is it's the sweet spot between productive learning and fatigue. If you go past 3 hours, that's where injuries start to occur, everything. People turn back and look at you and they're like, I'm done. Like, and you're like, oh, we're right at 3 hours. So a private lesson, like I would take you out, I'd load you on my boat. We'd go out to our coaching area and the water's off of Fourth Point. I would give you safety demonstrations and we provide really top-notch world-class instruction that we're sought after. And it lasts 3 hours. We give you a wetsuit, we make sure you're comfortable, and we do our thing. And that's a traditional lesson. And that lasts, we will take out whole families where the parents sign up for a private lesson, the kids sign up for a private lesson, and suddenly a father-daughter combination or a mother-daughter combination can go ride. So we do our lessons in either private, so one-on-one instruction, or semi-private, which is 2 students to 1 instructor. We do not go beyond that because when you're teaching someone to kite, if someone's having an accident over there and someone's having an accident over there, I can't respond to 2 people at once. So it's always 1 kite in the sky with very individualized hands-on instruction that is extremely specialized and requires a lot of training. And that's where, so to your question, we do our lessons in 3-hour blocks and it's either private or semi-private. And for this summer, we said, camp is no mas, you can sign up for lessons. And that's what we did.
So I'm still confused about if you send 2 kids out on a boat with an instructor, is this priced differently? Is it a longer period of time?
So it fits into our morning slot. So we do our lessons from a 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. slot, 1:30 to 4:30, and 4:45 to 7:45. And it fits into our morning slot of 10 to 1. It's not a deviation from.
I guess it seems to me there's a way to structure this where it's not a camp. And you're providing the same, so I'm just confused.
No,
and from a safety, I mean, I think the health code is about a group of children doing an activity together and making sure they're safe.
Exactly. And
that's the definition of having more than 5 children out doing an activity simultaneously under your care is what potentially defines you as a camp. And so I'm confused about the difference between instructors taking 2 kids out in a semi-private lesson on a boat and 2 other kids on another boat, and but you're gathering 6 children together, sorting them out with counselors and sending them on a boat. That feels like camp to me as opposed to a private lesson. So,
no, I fully understand your question now. So what we did to alter that structure previously, before we knew about the regs, we had that group. And what we did is there's no more group. So it's 2 people off doing their own thing. There's no group of 5 together. And that was our alteration of, we don't have a group of kids together. We don't have possibility of disease, etc. And that's why we altered that of let's stay away from a group setting and break it into individualized lessons.
I just what triggers these regulations, I guess, is the greater than 5 children at one location for more than 2 hours. Yeah, on site. So I'm arguing that we don't want to trigger these regulations. John wants to do what's best, and I agree with him, but I just don't think this is considered a camp per se. A bit of a gray area, but once you trigger it, you trigger a number of regulations Not that we're against them, but it's just difficult to do. And by taking 2 kids on a boat to teach them a bunch of water sports for 3 hours, I'm not sure triggers that. And that's why we're here.
I guess, I'm thinking it's like, in order to do individual lessons, you have a plan. You have backup plan for emergencies. If something happens out, you kind of know where you're going to go for help. You know what you're going to do. And I guess in some ways, and like Steve kind of mentioned, it's like if you were planning for 2023, you have time to really map that all out, what to look like for 6 students, 6 adults of a former teacher, students. And where there's a potential problem area or a gray area, you can come to us. And as you see, we are pretty lenient with variances. We ask questions because we do want to make sure about safety, health, concern about the environment. In some ways, when you were describing what the individual lesson does, I'm thinking, well, if you're doing it the right way, you've covered probably most of the bases that would be required, because you can't go out using the equipment you guys have and not have a safety plan in effect. And so I would encourage you to start talking to us now for 2023. And, because I think we're not against water sports on an island. And we do appreciate that, the idea of a scholarship. So that it's not just, the kids who have lots of money, but, we're surrounded by this great, with the water and all those things it offers, but it's got to be done right. And those are really for safety and health and the environment.
To answer that question, I actually thoroughly I spent over a month. I wrote over 85 pages of line item by line item, responding to every aspect of CMR 105-430. I created a Google document that you could click on the guidance, and it would take you within our company manual and our employee training manual where it addressed those points. It made you think very holistically about safe delivery of services. And the final hiccups we ran into were these structural things of do you have a physical medical tent? Do you have 2 bathrooms for each gender? And within this fine, we're more than happy to pay it. What we want to make sure is that we are on a strong footing and in a good relationship with you guys so that we can work together and come up with something that works. In 2023, we hit the ground running.
Yeah, you have a plan for medical emergencies, I'm assuming already. And if it's a good plan, it's the same plan that will probably be just somewhat magnified. So, we're here to, we want good things to happen. We want the kids to have healthy experiences. And I think we can pull this off if we start planning in advance.
And we would love to work with you guys. And Jake would love to work with you too.
Yeah, go ahead, Jake.
So as far as meeting the requirements for a camp, the biggest issue was, one of the bigger issues was the bathrooms. And they did apply for a variance, which was going to be 2 boat toilets on a barge.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 of the portable toilets.
Which we didn't find met the minimum standards, because as we discussed, you didn't really have an area for them to use the bathroom unless it was a town pier, which could be a long boat ride for a kid who might need to use the bathroom pretty far, towards Pocomo Point. So that was our biggest issue. And as far as it's great. I think, what you guys do is great. It's just, it didn't meet the minimum standards for recreational camps for children. And the biggest issue was advertising as a camp. And that's kind of why we're here. And the first time was in June. I emailed John about the ad. And then again, in mid-August 19th, there was another ad advertising as a camp, which is why I went to Pocomo Point to do a site visit to make sure that it wasn't happening, because they need to meet the state standards. So that's the only reason that we're here.
But that's the real reason.
Yeah.
It's, let's start talking, and there's got to be other camps that are water-based somewhere in the country. And how are they addressing their ability to provide the basic safety services and health and stuff services?
Yeah.
If the barge isn't good enough, which I could see why potentially, it's just, there's got to be ways this works. Because this is not the first time a water sports camp has been proposed in the United States. So I'm kind of taking that there's got to be a solution out there that is presentable to the board. If it requires a variance, it would possibly be very acceptable. And, but I would say start planning now. Let time be our friend in this case, because there are going to be things we got to work out, and let's just make it work.
Sure.
So,
Any other questions for John or Jake?
I want to know what the health department got with all that. Where are you with the thing now? You want them to pay the fine. Can you work with them so the start of the next season,
Yeah,
you guys all agree? They
They-
know what kind of a permit they need?
yeah, we can
You
certainly
you
work
can
with
give
them.
them a permit to cover what they need
Yeah, and if
and
they,
everything they
you know,
do.
as it's already been stated, if they want to apply for variance for some of the parts in the code,
Right.
they're certainly welcome to do so to the board. They were also sent a cease and desist to stop operating at this time. So they should not be currently operating now. I don't know their season business plans, but they shouldn't be operating right now. So, I mean, we got a long time now before next summer. So there's plenty of time to work out any kinks or any variances that they want to apply for, or
When do you shut down?
So we operate through basically the end of this month, but the majority of our clients right now are 40 to 65. We teach predominantly adults. Kids are all back in school. And that's why it's so tough with us, because we do serve small kids, but it's a subset of our business. So much of our business is teaching adults, teenage, 21, 17, and right now it's, for us, we're a small business trying to survive on the island. And for our lessons, we've been doing, our lessons have never, our traditional lesson structure has never been in question. And that's part of the big fear for me, is like, has something I've invested 7 years of my life into, like, I coach the high school sailing team out here. I'm on the advisory board for NCS. Like, this is my home. This is a place I love. And so to cease and desist all operations, our traditional operations have never been in question. And that's really the big fear for me, is, do I have my livelihood and my
no, the
Everything
thing just
worked out.
says cease operations of a recreational camp. It doesn't say cease operations as a business.
Exactly.
I mean, it really is limited to this issue in question.
And that's,
And I'm assuming it ceased partly because school opened and you hopefully complied with the order when it happened, and didn't push that button.
and from the start, we take this very seriously. We started our time on the island by meeting with Bill Pittman, Sheila Lucy, and Amy Baxter. We were approved in front of the board of, we had a town vote. And it's something we really take pride in, professional services. And if you look at our reviews, we've only ever received 5-star reviews. And it's something that we take pride in. We view ourselves as probably one of the best entities in the industry. But yeah, our goal is looking forward, and we really want to work with you guys, and we want to be one of the camps that if someone wants to start a camp, you guys can say you should talk to John. Like, I spoke with Chris Couture extensively going through this. Our whole goal is to follow, I'm a CPA by trade. I want to follow every letter of the law, and I want my staff to do the same. And that's why for us, it means a lot. Like, the fine, we're happy to pay that. But for us, it's making sure we're in good standing with Jake and the rest of the Board of Health, so that we are in a good spot to move forward for 2023.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. We tend to be the board of compliance. This is your first, if this was like your third time in front of us, it would be probably a problem, and we'd probably make you pay the fine. But, I'd be in favor of, tearing the ticket up, and as long as, looks like you're going to work with these guys later, and you got a lot of time to work it out.
No, my concern is, 2 meetings ago, we didn't do that with the sustainable market. And we said we didn't do it because it would set a precedence, even though they have a history of working with the board. So, but again, I'm just going to go back to the argument we used a month ago, that it's not the amount of the fine, but it's more, there's something was happened, and it did happen, and that, we just kind of, it's like, since we paid a fine, fix the operations, work with us, start working with us now, and let's design a program that will be compliant.
And to be fair, Jim just had a great idea. Like we'll withdraw our appeal. Like we'll pay 100. Like that's totally, the whole thing for me is we just want to have a clear path forward where it's mutually beneficial for the community and we can succeed.
That's acceptable. I guess I'm asking lots of questions, but it's acceptable to me. If you want to withdraw the appeal, you'll pay the fine. But please reach out and start working with the staff. Our goal is to have a healthy community, and physical activity, sports and stuff are part of that.
And that's my big concern with the fine is, like, if we're going forward next year, is, well, we fined you last year, going to be used as ammo against it. Like that's. Yeah, I didn't sleep for a whole night when I got that.
No, we don't have an ammo camp, so don't worry about that. If it was a repeat offender, yeah, we'd be concerned. But this is the first time, and this is potentially a really solvable problem, given that you have to design a safe environment already for individual instructions, and we can deal with how does that scale up to a camp size of 5 or more.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, John. I think board's good with that.
You make that motion.
I'd like to make a motion that they withdraw their appeal. Accept the withdrawal of their
Can I get
appeal.
a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, Meredith Lepre,
Yes.
Jim Cooper,
Yes.
Brooke Moore,
Yes.
Carrie McKenna,
Yes.
and Steve Isco says yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Good.
Okay, John. Discussion of seating at Millie's restaurant.
Yeah, just for the record, you were sent a letter from Rick Bodette about wanting to postpone this discussion. It is an item on your agenda, so you can discuss it. So I'll just say that first. I see somebody has their hand up. Brian Swain.
Yeah, he's probably going to be talking for them.
Are you there, Brian?
Yep, I'm here. So I'm here. Rick's unavailable at the moment. He's been Millie's attorney for the last 15 years. And we did reach out to staff to try to get this continued. I think John did send it out today. So was hoping before you begin the discussion that you'd entertain a motion to continue this to the October hearing to afford Rick and the applicant to be present for the discussion.
Do you have any other board members have a problem with that?
No, have a problem. Better information, we'll get a better decision.
I'd like to discuss it if you don't mind, but you're just.
Is this?
I've included everything in the packet for review and everything that's been observed is, having as many as 250 seats set up on a septic system that's good enough for 124.
We've been through this
So
before.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead, Brooke.
Are they still operating?
Yeah, they're
this
still
yes,
open.
season?
yep.
Yeah, if they were shut down for the season, I would think a delay of this discussion might be more warranted than if they're still operating.
We had a problem before.
Yeah,
Am I still live?
yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yep.
I was hoping you could at least entertain the motion before discussions occurred. There's already been discussion made by staff and the board. I believe you continued a hearing on this agenda already, and we just ask that you afford us the same deference that you gave a prior applicant on your agenda this evening.
That was a Sachem's Road. That was a different
Yeah, that's a
application.
whole different situation. It's not a, it's just a septic issue and building permit.
How much longer are they gonna operate this season?
That'd be a question for Brian. Brian, do you know how much longer they're gonna operate?
Another maybe 30 days. I think sometime in October is when they shut down. It's the shoulder season and they don't get many patrons out there right now. So, you know, Brooke, you or someone had mentioned this would continuing if they didn't have a problem, it'd be more information available and allow a more robust discussion. And I think that's completely true. There's special permits involved for this property. The planning board was involved. There was a joint discussion between the Board of Health and the planning board and select board. And the Board of Health has changed since a lot of these permits were issued. And I think only Steve and Jim are the only remaining members going back to when a lot of this permitting was done. So, you know, there's a lot of information that could be added and contributed to what's been submitted to you. And you'd have a more clear picture of what's going on out there.
And I was just in Millie's like a couple nights ago. So, and I also live out in Nantucket. So if we're gonna have a discussion, I have lots of questions, but if it's gonna be tabled, I don't want to be throwing those out there right now. So, you know, are we free to discuss?
You can discuss.
Yeah,
It's
we
an
can
item on your
discuss. I mean,
agenda there.
this issue is, been ironed out
chronic.
years ago, and there's 124C formula they're supposed to follow, and it sounds like they weren't following it on a site visit. It's pretty simple. I
Yeah.
mean, it's all spelled out. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. And there are a lot more picnic tables when they're listed on the thing. And there are 8. I mean, when I was there last couple days ago, I mean, the families of 8 sit at a table because you got the kids and all. So it's not 4 people per table. So, you know, I know it's a chronic issue, and just kind of seeing it again was kind of like, it should be 124, and that's the number that it's designed for.
And I guess where staff's asking for, set in a regulation or policy as far as if they're over that seating count, seats set up at the establishment. So it's not just number of people there, it's the number of actual physical seats. And a person standing in there also counts as a person in that 124 it's in the packet with when Brian Dudley was with DEP. I mean, we're sticking to that. I mean, these picnic tables have 8 people to them. Septic's 124. So, I mean.
Is there a ticket involved in this last inspection?
We haven't ticketed yet. We're the policy we're hoping is that, if we catch them in this violation of the septic system, that we revoke their permit or suspend their permit the next day for 1 day. Second violation, maybe 5 days. And then third violation, 30 days or, until the Board of Health meets again and allows for them to operate again. So it's really us staff looking for a policy to have a punishment for, or a more than a citation in this scenario for violations. I mean, the other part of it is it's a lot on staff to go out and enforce this every day. We can't drive out to Millie's every day. We can drive out to Millie's every day if we need to. There is a lot of other things going on as well, though, too. So for us to go out there every day and police this is, a big task. And, $500 a day ticket's a big ticket, but, in a busy summer, I think a more severe punishment is what's in order.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't think at this meeting, it should be, we come up with some scenario to,
Yeah.
for a violation. I mean, the 124 is the 124. You went out there,
Yep,
and didn't count, and they were
Yep.
over it,
yep.
and that's it.
What was the count?
Well, as far as seats that I've counted that, possible seats, it's probably around 250.
Yeah.
So it's about double the amount of the septic system. And I mean, the other part of that is they only have 3 bathrooms available to their customers, which would cap them at 150 customers. So they're over that as well. So, and we go by seats.
I know that with some of the outdoor dining permits in town, like there were seats outside and then seats removed, they had to be removed inside, right? I mean, I think, or not occupied. So having the seats is a problem, and they're permitted for outside and inside, right? It's not like the additional seats that were granted for outdoor dining, right? They're only supposed to have 124
And this is
seats.
based because they have a design flow on that property that meets only 124 seats
And
based
then
on so
then
many.
the sewage was coming right up onto the street.
So there's
And
a,
124 is 124. It's as simple as that.
Can I answer Brooke's question? She's
Yeah,
right.
go ahead, Brian.
We're still, I believe, in the COVID protocol where you can have more seating than your capacity, or excuse me, you're allowed to have additional seats. And that's true for every establishment. Outdoor seating was
That's-
granted by the select board to have a flexibility to distribute your seating capacity between interior and exterior seats. And every establishment had a larger number of seats than what they're permitted to have. That was part of the governor's executive order.
Correction, that was never the case. They could add outdoor seating, but they could never exceed their capacity at the restaurant. And,
Right.
During COVID, of course, outdoor seating was great. Having establishments being able to do that. Of course, the Board of Health was all for people, being outdoors instead of inside. But there are no current COVID restrictions. There's no separation. There's no capacity limits anymore. And it was never, you could add seats.
right.
So it has been a concern. I know, other boards have allowed the outdoor seating, but from a health standpoint, they still need to be in compliance with the number of bathrooms in this scenario. It's bathrooms as well as their septic system. I know they're a business that relies on having the outdoor seating, and there was discussions about them moving seating indoors when it's raining, which was okay during that discussion. It's how we monitor that. That's another issue, but that was part of the approval. So, or the last discussions in, I think, 2015. So,
Was there an actual head count at that time when the seats were counted?
yeah, I did do a head count. It was over, it was 133 or so. But, another thing to discuss is they have people waiting outdoors that are being served alcohol. So, they haven't been seated at a table yet or anything. So,
So they're patrons who are not, yeah.
right.
Are we looking, 124 is what, so I don't think it's an issue of, are they in violation? They're in violation. That seems pretty kind of clear. So the question, are we trying to figure out what to do? Is that what's before the board right now? Or a strategy for them to take on some responsibility to solve the problem?
The responsibility is theirs. When they get to 124, that's it.
So do they
Okay?
have anyone
You
that's
can't let it
monitoring?
get up to 160, 170, because their permit says 124. If they can have 500 seats inside and out, they can only just sit 124 people. That's what the permit says, and that's what they're allowed, and that's all they should have in there.
So do they have anyone
And
that's
if they
monitoring?
go out, if you go out there and there's 180 people in there, you find them and you shut them down.
All right, and I guess
It's plain and simple.
Right.
yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I guess my question is, are they willing to take on to have someone start counting and prevent it from happening?
They had a
Staff.
program before they were run.
They do have a system in place. I see Meredith has her hand up.
It sounds like the staff is recommending that they be suspended for a day. because they are, I mean, you have a septic for 124 people, you had at least 133 people and way more seats than that. I mean, I think that that's pretty clear cut. That's a violation. And it's also just bad for our island environmentally if you are taxing your septic system to that point. And I'm sure this was the time someone was out there, but I'm sure there are other times that if that was that time, who's to say it didn't happen more times? So are we just discussing whether or not they should have to close for a day?
Staff was just hoping for a policy moving forward, I guess, as far as, suspensions on violations. As I said, we can go there every day and ticket, a $500 ticket every day if they're over that capacity. That's an option. I just think another, I mean, technically, and I wanted to bring this to the board's attention as it's a problem, but, the leeway of COVID, there's no restrictions. It was encouraged to be outside, for people to make it work in that scenario. As I said, they couldn't go over their capacity. But, we wanted people to be outside and, that just expanded greatly. And then, as I said, just second, have a policy, typically be probably 3 strikes and we'd send them in front of the board, this has kind of been 3 strikes without issuing a ticket. So, so that's where we are.
I'm supportive of the staff recommendations. I'm not gonna make a more motion if you want to discuss them more, but I mean, we made the rules, we,
Gotta put your foot down.
yeah,
That's it.
we made the rules and we've monitored the rules and it's an ongoing discussion. This is not new.
Right.
And you have the documentation there and also I go there enough that, this
So the first time you find them, you shut them down for 1 day?
Yeah,
Is that?
what we
is that
drafted was,
The way it works, or can you find them and shut them down for a week?
with the board's permission, yeah, we
Wow.
could shut them down. Our proposal was to have them shut down the day after the observed violation over the septic system. Just it's a tough scenario to have everybody go home, when you're there by yourself. So we were thinking the day after would be the more appropriate approach to suspend their permit for that day on the first
And
violation.
then you're gonna have to go out the day after that to make sure it does not over 124 again.
Right. I mean, we do our routine inspections, which are not scheduled. So it's, establishments don't know when we're coming on the routines.
So do you like that as a recommendation for the next time this happens?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Hi, Rick's logging on right now. Before you make a decision, he'd like to have an opportunity to address the board.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Brooke.
So this would be a policy that we would establish across the board for occupancy limits, that staff would have the authority to issue a shutdown for the day following the violation.
Or it could be for the specific, I mean, there aren't too many restaurants that are actually on a septic system. And it's more geared towards this establishment just because we've witnessed many violations. But I mean, it certainly can be across the board.
If there aren't other establishments violating, then making it a policy isn't a problem for them. Right?
I'm sorry.
So in other words, if it's a across the board policy authorizing staff to do a 1-day shutdown following an occupancy violation,
Right.
it could affect other establishments as well. But if you don't see occupancy issues a lot, then
Right.
you won't need to use this authority frequently.
Right.
If
The
others
thing
are
is,
complying.
There's not that many restaurants that are on septic systems.
Yeah,
You know, so there's only, I don't need.
so it would only apply to those on septics?
Well,
It's,
no, no, you know, how many are on?
Yeah.
Subjects?
Couple, 3, 4?
Toppers, Sankaty Head, My Comet. No, and that's pretty much.
I think 4,
Millie's pretty much. that'd
there's
be
some, commercial kitchens on septic, but without seating.
I'm talking about with septic system with the problem that we're having.
Right, yeah. I think it's about 4. I think that was all of them. I mean, it's just it's been chronic violations for this establishment. So we'd like to set it for this establishment,
Okay,
really.
so you're asking for it not as a broad policy, but for this particular,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna
Oh,
make. motion.
did they, I think
Rick was gonna come in.
someone was going to speak. Are you there, Brian?
Yeah, Rick's Zoom, he should be on your screen with his hand raised. If he's not right now, he'll be doing it momentarily.
Okay, I see you twice on here.
Okay, I'm gonna leave. Maybe that's Rick.
I'm here if people can hear me.
Is that Rick?
That's me. What does it come up as Brian?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, comes
Okay,
up.
that's because Brian, I was just trying to get on and Brian sent me the link. So I think from this moment forward, this is me. I'm not Brian. Sorry. But I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, go, yep.
So, first and foremost, I mean, I've been involved with Millie's for 15 years and I apologize for not being there. I just had to jump off another Zoom meeting to jump onto this one. And I'm incredibly disappointed that you guys wouldn't continue this matter because I couldn't be here. Or I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be doing something else on Zoom. So, I've been on this island for 20 years and I stand up at every single board and I have for Millie's. And there isn't a single board on Nantucket that wouldn't allow a continuance for us to prepare properly so that the owner could properly be at the hearing and make comments. So unfortunately now, I kind of have to do this on the fly, but I have to renew my request to continue this. I mean, I think that frankly, the board doesn't have all the information they need. I think Millie's, so far as I'm concerned, unless someone tells me differently, has not had any violation for 8 years. And then all of a sudden they have a violation at the end of the season. And, I think we would like to see the count, the proper record of the count before we respond. We'd like the board to see all the minutes. I mean, I was at all these board meetings and not all the members, that are on there now were not. And so I think this particular board, before they make any kind of decision about Millie's, should see all the minutes and have an idea of what went on 8 years ago in 2014 when we were at all these hearings. So the planning board, board of health, select board, etc. So again, maybe you guys don't want to continue this to October, but as I assume Brian said, I don't really see any harm to the septic system or the Board of Health or the town of Nantucket in pushing this out a month so that we can gather the information that we have, see the information that John has. And because let's face it, from now until, June of next year, there's a 0% chance Millie's is going to be over capacity on their septic system. They're about to close. So, and they have there's zero flow going through the system 6 months out of the year. So again, I just don't understand why you guys wouldn't give us a little time to kind of take a look at everything and, respond properly so that the board has all the information before they make any decision here.
Any questions for Rick?
No. I'm where I am.
I'm not sure what reading the minutes from 2014 hearings would change anything, the permits for 124. And
Yeah, we've been through this all before, and I don't know what new information or what you're going to prepare for. And this is what I would caution you to is you may not want us to pull water records for the summer and see what actually goes in through that system, because I can tell you it's going to be more than 4,800 gallons a day. And what do we do about that? What kind of violation would that be? So the 124 is what it is, and I don't think we need to continue this till next week to prepare for what this. I don't think there's anything you're going to be able to say that's going to change anybody's mind or of 124 seats.
The
And Steve,
124 is not going to change.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Steve. Yeah, and that may be the case, Steve, and I'm totally cool with that. I mean, I'm not asking you to push this out so I can, because I think I'm going to change your mind. If your minds are made up, your minds are made up. But I think it's about fairness to the owner, okay, to have an opportunity to do this properly, because I do have questions about that count, right? I mean, there's no doubt about, I'm never going to even pretend to try to convince anybody that we should have 125 seats instead of 124. That we're all in agreement upon that, no doubt about it. However, I do have questions about the interpretation of what 124 is, and the reason those minutes are important is because that's what all those discussions were about. So I guess that's exactly what I'm talking about here is like, how was John counting it? And is that what was in, is that what was determined back in 2014 about how it was going to be counted? That's all. Because I don't know answers to those questions right off the top of my head. And I know this board doesn't either. But again, I mean, I'm not trying to convince anybody we should have more than 124 people there and eating. So I'm sorry if I gave you that impression.
The minutes from the July 30th, 2014 public hearing were in our packet. So I'm printed them out and I'm looking at them right now. And it says the health department argues adherence to the 124 seats. It's the manager's choice as to whether the seating is inside or outside or a combination of both, but not to exceed 124 seats. He observed 133 people there and much more than, sounds like a lot more than 124 seats. So I mean, I wasn't on the board then, but I have the minutes in front of me of 124 to 124. Am I incorrect in that?
So my understanding, and I apologize, I don't have those minutes in front of me, but I know I thought the minutes that were attached that I saw in the packet, I thought, and forgive me if I'm wrong, were from an August hearing, not that July 30th. But the very last hearing that was in front of the Board of Health, it was I think very clear that it was 124 people, not 124 seats. So I don't know, when you just said it's 124 seats, so I don't know. And that a seat is a person is what the board unanimously decided, and I think with Steve recused at the time back then. And I apologize, I don't have it in front of me, so I don't know whether it's the 30th or the next hearing. But there were a series of hearings that entire summer and fall, including a planning board hearing with a joint hearing with the Board of Health, where this was all hashed out. And so I guess, what I'm saying is, I don't know exactly how it was counted and whether it was counted in accordance with what was decided unanimously by the Board of Health. That's all. So again, I mean, I would never sit here and tell you and pretend that they're allowed to have more than 142 people there eating and drinking. It's really just a matter of, I want to make sure I understand how it was counted and that it complies with what was decided back then. Because guys, we've been relying on that for 8 years and we've never had a violation. And then all of a sudden, we have a violation. So that's why, and we take incredible efforts, despite what you all may think, we take incredible efforts to comply with that. There's a lot of training that goes on, and there's a new hostess every year, of course, and it's incumbent upon the manager, and it's our burden, don't get me wrong, to comply. But I think it's important for you guys to hear the whole story about how we try to comply with this. And if we're over, again, like I said, then we're over, and it's our fault. But I just want to make sure I understand that we were over that time that John went in. That's all. I'm not arguing that 124 is, I'm not arguing that 133 isn't more than 124. So I just want to make sure it was counted properly. That's all.
Brooke?
What we're discussing is a future enforcement policy. Has nothing to do with this violation, am I correct? It is giving you the authorization for the next violation to issue a one-day cease?
That'd be correct, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So-
what we were
So
bringing to
this
the
is
table.
not, this one-day closure is not being applied to this violation. It's the next one.
Yes.
And
I guess my recommendation is, the manager did submit to me a seating chart that they do have. It's hard to read. It's real small, or at least it was for me trying to print out. One of my recommendations might be that they provide us with a brand new seating chart, floor plans showing 124 seats set up in the establishment. We received complaints, emails, and, this year it seemed the picnic tables are big enough for 8 people, and previously I believe they were big enough for 6. So it seems like a different scenario. If they want to move seats inside, I think picnic tables is the wrong furniture to try and move indoors if it's raining, to try and add more seats inside. But, I think having maybe a revised floor
How
plan.
many seats are there inside? Don't count. We've through this before.
I mean, there's in the upstairs dining room, there's 3 tables that I counted 10 people at. There's 2 tables in the upstairs bar that seat 8 people. So right there is 46.
Right. It doesn't really matter because the number's 124.
Right.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, go ahead.
thank you. So it's John's recommendation that we have 124 chairs there. That is the exact thing that the Board of Health unanimously rejected 8 years ago. And so Brooke's point is well taken, and I appreciate it. And the fact that, we're not talking about, losing a day because of the last violation. And I understand we're talking about the future for next year and whether we violate at that point. Okay. However, I think how the count is taken is really important, because the planning board's decision specifically states, and the Board of Health's final, again, unanimous decision rejected the idea that we have just 124 seats on site. That because it's Nantucket, because it gets foggy, because it rains sometimes, we need the flexibility. We can't be bringing in 124, outside, 124 inside. And that's exactly the discussion we had in 2014. And that's exactly the way we've been operating for all these years. And so if that's, in other words, if John walked in there last month, and again, I know we're talking about the future, but I think it's really relevant how it was counted. So if he was counting chairs, then I can tell you right now, there's a heck of a lot more than 124 chairs there. But that's because that's what everybody told us we were allowed to do for the last 8 years. So So, and by the way, we kind of want the same understanding as you guys, whether it hurts us or benefits us, we want clarity as well. So, I think it would be helpful if, maybe we provide a particular seating chart. We definitely provided seating charts way back when. And they definitely had more than 124 seats on them, just so everybody knows. There was a lot of discussion back in 2014, and some of you will remember this, I'm sure, Mr. Cooper and Steve. The big issue back then was, the bar table, or there were finger bars at the time, a little area where someone can stand and eat and drink. And so, now again, those don't have chairs, but no doubt about the fact that in my mind, and I think in my client's mind, they count, right? And they should count. I mean, that's someone who can order a meal there, even if they're standing. It doesn't, and that was the point, a big part of the point of the Board of Health deciding back then that it was people, not chairs. And so I'm going to say chairs from now on so that we don't confuse it with seats, but basically the decision at the time by the planning board and the Board of Health was people is a seat, a person is a seat. That's all. So I guess I would say, based on the history here, I would hope that you would at least keep it counted the way it's always been counted for the last few years. So I know I'm going on and on, but
Okay.
again, I didn't have a proper chance to prepare for this. I didn't think I'd be standing here, so my apologies.
Go ahead, Brooke.
Can I make a suggestion? I'm going to suggest that we authorize the staff to issue this type of violation for a head count violation over 124, and that we put this item back on the agenda to clarify with the owners, and maybe for me, seating count, given the in and out movement of people in that environment, they likely need more available spots for people to be, but they've got to make sure that they're not occupied indoors when they're occupied outdoors, and that maybe we clarify this question of seat count. I'd like more information on that, but to me, there's a clear violation in the number of people who are in the building on the property relative to the number of their occupancy limit, and that you should have the authority to impose a significant consequence to being over a head count limit.
So, Mr. Chair, if I can, I think it should be capped at the 124 seats. The next item on the agenda is a kind of a similar violation. It's more due to the number of bathrooms, so local regulation 14. And we're restricting them to 50 seats. So, if they're allowed more, it's becomes a real enforcement game,
Yeah.
on this numbers. And they do have a system in place. I've spoke with them the past 3 years. I haven't witnessed egregious amounts of people there. I think it's given the impression a number of times because there's a lot of people waiting in line to get in there. But a seat's a seat, and it represents a person. So we got to keep the playing field fair.
With the Board of Health is concerned, the septic stuff, tables don't poop, people do. And the cap of 124 is about people and the capacity of the system to keep the Nantucket water quality healthy. So, it's about people ultimately that were our biggest concern. If they have 5 extra chairs because they got to move something inside and out, I'm not concerned about the actual physical chair. I'm concerned about the number of people on site and the over capacity, and it does not used half a year doesn't mean anything to me. When it's used, it can overflow if it's abused.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Just one more point. Obviously, I guess, I don't like it, but I don't particularly have an issue with you guys authorizing, whatever you want to authorize for next year in terms of violations. It's out of my control anyway. But I do think, Brooks' point is well taken, and I would like, at the very least, an opportunity, you know, whether it's next month or whatever, or anytime, I don't know, between now and the next season, to really, and I'd hope that you'd hold that vote on what you're going to do until then, but you know, to really explain operationally what we do and how we try to comply. I mean, obviously, I do think it should be heads, not chairs. And let's keep in mind, I mean, obviously, you know, everybody here wants to protect the watershed, right? But remember that those regulations that are in place, okay, that which is the septic Title V septic regulations that only allow us to go up to 124, are really typically, I think, unless John tells me something otherwise, those are for year-round restaurants. And I think collectively, the fact is, yeah, we may have 124 seats filled for a couple hours every day for 6 weeks, but for 8 months of the year, we have zero flow going through that system. So, so while I know why the 124 exists, and I'm not suggesting because we're closed half the year, we should be allowed more than 124. However, I just think all of these things collectively should be taken into account, and the efforts that we put forward to really try to do this, because it's really sort of a, you know, it's with a lot of things in mind that we get people in and out of that restaurant fast. And the fact is, whether we have 50 seats or 124 seats, the people are coming, and they are going to be standing there. And let's keep in mind that the people in Nantucket hate it when everybody is standing outside waiting for a table there. And so, you know, again, I just think it would be great to have this clarification in the short term. And I'm hoping you guys kind of reserve any judgment until you kind of hear a full description from us of what we do and how we try to do it there. That's all.
Okay, so what's the board's feeling? Do you want to go with Brooks' motion to, you know, approve the policy to the staff for the enforcement and put this back on the agenda for next month?
Yeah, I'm supportive of that, because I kind of do, I mean, 124 is a snapshot in time. They go through several serving cycles in the course of a day, so it's not 124 people use. I mean, so I do want to give them a chance to explain, but you know, like you said, it will open up other questions that they need to be prepared to answer. But they're important questions because it does tax the system. But I think we need to be clear that we are concerned, you know, there are rules. 124 is a solid number, and it needs to be followed. So I would support Brooks.
I want to clarify. I'm going to make a motion that this policy apply to a head count in excess of 124, with us discussing the seating count at a later meeting.
Can the health department limit them to 124 seats on the property?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's Title V
That would
limits them.
solve every problem if there is. If there's only 124 places for people to sit, then they can only put 124 people in there.
The building can't physically seat 124 people. That's why it's like, before it was like, it's actually like 70 something inside and 50 something outside.
Yeah. And they
So
also
if
have
you
the
wanna count
tables.
people,
And
you'd have to-
how they rearrange that 124 is, we've been through this. I'm
Yeah,
just,
we have, I
Yeah,
know.
I'm sorry. I feel like there's history that I don't know, that I'm asking you guys to revisit. If you're not, if you would prefer to go a different direction from what I'm proposing.
no, I mean,
I'd like to kind of, you know, the thing is, yes, there's people waiting in line for takeout. So sometimes they hang out by the rear picnic tables. And then you got the picnic tables out front. Last year, they had the double tent where they had that in the back part. So and that was a COVID type adjustment. They
Right.
didn't have that tent this year.
Right.
So, you know, there's a certain kind of flex you have as people move in and out of a restaurant. And we're not trying to prevent that, but bottom line is, at any one point in time, it's only designed for 124. And unless there's a different way to count people, because do you count people in the takeout line? We don't know if they're in takeout line when you get there. I mean, there's people on the property, and they can also use the facilities at the same time too. So, I'd be willing to give them a chance to explain stuff, but I think that 124 is a number that is pretty clear. I mean, it was set up several years ago, and it's been observed, and we give the board the authority to be able to follow up on violations.
I say that, it's 124 is 124. And the thing is that I don't know what it's going to take to make them understand that. In other words, if you shut them down for one day and you charge them $500, big deal. Okay. But you have to put in place that after so many times and so many fines, you pull the license.
Right. That's what we're.
And you shut them down
That's
completely.
fair.
It doesn't matter if it's the 4th of July.
Right.
And that's what the
Right, and
proposal,
that's
if
what
there's a
we're-
third
That's what's in there.
violation,
We're
should
looking.
result in suspension of permit until approved by the Board of Health to resume operation. So that's part of the, what the staff recommendations are. So the third one is a severe.
And that's what you have to do. You just have to do it to make them, obviously, they don't understand.
Mhm.
I mean, a $500 fine in the middle of July isn't going to bother them out for one day. I mean, we went through this before.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Rick. I'd like to
Right,
wrap
so-
this up.
I know. I guess I know I missed the beginning of the hearing and I apologize. But have there been significant $500 fines year after year that I'm unaware of? And again, forgive me if I'm unaware, but
Not in the past few years, no.
so I'm sorry, again, was I incorrect that there haven't been any violations in the 8 years since those decisions were made?
I
Because
think it's-
again, I don't know them, I do these hearings, but I from a day-to-day basis, I don't hear from these guys, so.
I don't think I don't remember any fines or violations. There may have been one or two, not, corrective things on cleanliness on the outside when Hank Ross was one of the inspectors, maybe.
I guess I'm talking about the seating thing because, and the
Yeah,
reason I'm asking is.
it's not on the seat, nothing on the seating thing, I don't think.
No.
Okay, so I guess the reason I'm asking is because Mr. Cooper is saying, well, we've been through this before and these guys don't learn. And again, I'm not saying it's unfair if someone has a violation of seating, that they shouldn't be punished. I mean, that's fair enough. Whatever you guys decide, I guess I guess I'm a little disturbed by the characterization that we don't learn our lesson and $500 isn't going to matter to us, obviously, because you guys have fined us before, but it sounds to me like that hasn't happened. So what are we, why are we talking about
Right,
that?
I think what Jim was really referring to was like what you were talking to before when we had those hearings in 14 and before and,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
not necessarily that we had fined you on that.
Right, okay, so I guess, again, from my standpoint, and I think you guys can sort of appreciate this, is that, as their attorney, I think from their standpoint, they thought everything was cool on the seating. And then John comes up and gives them a violation. And if they're over, then fair enough. Okay, and I don't know how it was counted, but whatever. So it just seems a little bit punitive to now, if they've had one violation, to say, these guys really need to learn their lessons and we need to take the permit away for a day and then a week. And, again, I'm not saying that's not the right move globally for all restaurants, but I guess I'm saying I don't know why it applies to us as opposed to others, or why, this is coming up now. Again, without a real discussion about how we're trying to comply. That's all.
Yeah, I get it. I don't think the policy should just be based on one particular place.
Yeah.
And I don't think, like the next item on the agenda would be similar type of thing. It should be a blanket policy so as to not to be picking on anybody. So, and then I'm fine with, if any, you wanted to come back next month and discuss this, and since we got 2 new board members here, and, we can revisit the seating thing and talk it out and go over what it is. And I know you guys have a program that's supposed to follow it, and training, and I mean, I'd be fine with that.
The potential motion would be to adopt the staff recommendations, which are not retroactive, but are future-based, future violations, and that they aren't going to apply just really to Millie's. I mean, it would be minimally all restaurants on septic systems, and possibly just all restaurants.
Yeah, any overseating capacity, right?
And I would change the word of seating capacity to occupancy limit till we sort out this question of.
It's, the health's kind of based on seating.
Okay.
I mean, occupancy
so-
is usually
That's
building
building,
and
yeah.
fire, I think, yeah.
Okay.
So,
So,
but we
I mean,
can discuss it, next month.
I'd be willing to make a motion that we accept the staff recommendations as stated. And they're not, just reminding Rick and the others, it's not retroactive. And that it is future oriented, and it will give us a chance to really start hopefully stabilizing what our policies are, and people know in advance what the consequences would be for violation.
As long as the meeting, if they're coming in, is for the next meeting with us. We don't want to wait 2, 3, 4 months.
I'm saying we can accept these the way they are.
Yeah.
They can choose to come in or not. Yeah, that's their choice. They can contact and ask to be put on the agenda.
Right.
But if they don't, it doesn't change the fact that we would make these recommendations and ask that they be applied as policy type things, not as a one out against a particular vendor.
Okay, so can I get a second on Carrie's motion?
I'll second, but I want a clarification that we're applying this to all restaurants with septic systems that operate on septic systems.
Are there any others?
Yes.
Yes.
There are.
Okay.
You,
Golf club, I guess.
Oh,
yeah, toppers.
Terry has her hand up.
Hi, I wrote the motion and I kind of wanted to read it back because I thought you were going to add the policy for all restaurants but I wrote the motion as a motion to adopt the staff recommendations as stated for a policy for all restaurants with septics and not to be retroactive. Would that suffice?
Yes.
Okay. Going with that one.
Okay. So all, so it's, the motion's been said, seconded by
Yeah.
Brooke. I get it, all in favor?
Yeah.
Jim Cooper,
Yes.
Meredith Lepre,
Yes.
Brooke Moore,
Yes.
Carrie McKenna,
Yes.
and Steve Visco says yes. And Rick, thanks for coming in, and you guys can come back to discuss that at any time.
All right.
When you're
Thanks a lot.
when you're ready.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys letting me, kind of jump in the middle. I know that wasn't terribly efficient for your meeting, but appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, John, discussion on seating at Bar Yoshi.
Yeah, so this is kind of in the same vein. It's just there's one bathroom in this establishment, so they're limited to 50 seats. per Regulation 14, Local Board of Health Regulation 14. They were approved that way. Again, I think this kind of came out of COVID with outdoor seating. They had a lot of outdoor seating. And we've counted 74 seats, 58, and 84 seats, I believe. So, or 68. I think maybe 68. So regardless, all over 50 on 3 separate inspections. So fact of the matter is they're just out of compliance and it seems to be a problem. So we had recommended the same scenario of suspending the permit for 1 day after the first violation, 5 days after the second violation, and after the third, it would be, suspension until, come to the Board of Health and things are resolved.
Any questions?
Nope.
Could I get a motion to accept the staff's recommendations on the?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meredith,
Yes.
Jim Cooper,
Yes.
Carrie McKenna,
Yes.
Brooke Moore,
Yes.
and Steve Visco says yes.
May I ask?
Yep, go ahead.
I'd be interested in having a discussion about this as an overall policy, as opposed to being applied to individual locations. I don't know. I would just be interested in having a conversation about it.
I mean, if I can add in,
Yeah,
Mr.
go ahead.
Chair,
Or
it's-
let ask through you to staff the nature of applying it to individual establishments as opposed to
I
as a
think it
blanket
just
policy.
comes down to chronic violations.
Okay.
It just doesn't seem to be adherence to, the regulations when things have been seemingly spelled out very clear.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Okay, discussion, semi-public pools, chemical testing requirements not being met. And that would be all those in a row?
correct, yes. So these are all based on inspections done by Jake and Kathy in the office there was a number of the inspections of these places listed, either not testing 4 times a day or logging all the tests that need to be done, free chlorine, total chlorine, combined chlorine, alkalinity, pH level. So I don't know if Jake wants to add more to it. He can. Sorry.
What are you actually looking from us to do about this? I mean, did you issue tickets or?
This would be a same, suspension of permits.
I mean, it's already, you have the ability to do that now, right?
Right, to ticket and suspend,
I
yeah.
think random inspection.
Yes, yep,
So they never know when to come.
correct, yeah.
And in most
So-
situations, there was more than one violation. It wasn't generally just one thing. There was a lot of buoys, furniture. I mean, there was
Yeah,
it
yeah,
wasn't really just like you walked in and there was one thing wrong and
right, yeah, number of violations.
Do you want to go up, Jake?
Jake Visco, Health Inspector again. So yeah, there were multiple violations, and pretty much the biggest thing is just not testing the chemicals 4 times a day, like John said, and also just a lack of understanding by the certified pool operators that we require. Like a lot of the times I'll go there and the guys will just be like, I don't know how to test these chemicals. So like that frightens me a little bit, considering they have to do it 4 times a day, and especially since they have to do it at peak beta load times, which they never really do. So there's just a lot of things that go into this, and it just kind of snowballed.
so I guess you can do stuff without us, right?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can, yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
it's, this one is more of the blanket,
right, but
like,
don't be,
see-
if
But-
they're in non-compliance and you have to write a ticket,
Right, correct.
write the ticket and
Yeah.
then if they want to come to appeal the ticket, they'll
Yeah.
come in front of us,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then, I
I
mean,
mean,
that,
we'll certainly do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes with pools, it's harder to continue to go back,
I
find the
mean,
time.
if you turn a blind,
enforcement
if we
wise.
turn, not that you're turning a blind eye, but if you do and then you don't do anything, it'll just keep going on.
Right, yeah. So I think some of it comes down to maybe some of the, I mean, a fine's a fine and it is a punishment, that's for sure. Sometimes, we don't know how much a fine is really doing, to start taking all this serious and get into compliance. So,
Jack the fine up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that is, we can adjust the structure
Just
if,
jack it up and make them aware of it.
'cause-
Well, I mean, first violation's one thing, the next day, the second
right.
one's different, right?
right,
Yeah.
correct, yeah.
But again, that might be, it might be that internal discussion of are the consequences on the book effective, or is it easy enough to soak them up and say, it doesn't matter? So, I mean, is there, if it's not working, then we got to talk about what is an appropriate response to get people to understand that this is important.
Right, correct.
But, you have the authority to do stuff already. So I would say, you just do it. I mean, this makes us aware,
Right.
and that's important. But,
Right, which-
I don't think is there any action you need from us today?
We don't. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, we do definitely have authority to issue tickets and fines and everything. And, I think from the last other agenda items, once people are kind of, 3 strikes, you're kind of really on the bad boy list. And I think at that point, we need to start discussing, suspending permits for certain periods of time. But
If it turns out that it's not effective, then we've got to figure out a different way to respond.
it is concerning to see, this amount of establishments not meeting the requirements. So.
So,
Right, so, so we're all aware now.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Jake.
and if you don't think it's good enough stuff, we have a work group to address it.
Yeah.
I mean, like what else can we do to make it clear that these are important issues?
Right.
Okay, partial condemnation of 5 Cow Pond.
Yes. So we initially received a complaint of some sewer issues going on in the property, and then as well as some overcrowding on the property. So we, it's a duplex building with a basement. So we knocked on the doors and gained access and met the tenants there at the property. And in the basement, there's 3 rooms, 3 bedrooms, and none of them meet proper means of egress. So doesn't meet the standards for habitation. So
What didn't they have? They didn't have the windows, the escape?
correct size egress windows. Yeah. So one room actually doesn't even have a window at all. So and there's only one outer exterior staircase. So if there ever was a fire emergency or anything like that, it's a real
So what's
dangerous
the status of it right
situation.
now?
It's condemned right now.
It's
We
condemned?
just need the board to ratify that
everybody's
condemnation. Yes, as far as we've, upon our last inspection, it appears that way.
Yeah.
Can I ask
Go ahead.
a question? In that circumstance, is the landlord required to rehome the people that are made homeless? I mean, if they've so obviously I know a lot about affordable housing, but I don't know a lot about health code enforcement and housing yet.
Right.
But I want to understand, I can see potential scenarios where a landlord leases a place to someone and then they allow other people to occupy on a sublease arrangement or whatever, or over occupy a home. And then there's circumstances where a landlord is actually aware and perhaps directly leasing to tenants in substandard housing.
Right.
And what are the landlord's obligations in those sort of two different circumstances? Because my understanding is they are in some way obligated to rehome people if they've leased someone an illegal dwelling, correct?
To be honest, I'm not fully sure
Okay.
the responsibilities in those scenarios. I mean, that's the angle we would like to take, and believe should be taken, that they were leased an illegal apartment, so therefore should be responsible. That has happened in the past where they've put people up, a landlord has that we knew of. But I think there's some gray areas and legal things involved with that, with landlord and tenant and
Well,
their
even
tenant rights
availability
and
of
everything.
alternative housing.
There are tenant rights where they can withhold rent and put it in escrow, I believe, if conditions aren't met. Those are some of the rights of tenants. But as far as putting them up, need to do more research in that.
Yeah, I'd love to learn more about that.
Yeah, and in this case, this wasn't an illegal apartment, it's just one that's condemned because of living conditions, or was it an illegal apartment?
It is an
too?
illegal, it doesn't meet.
Okay.
It doesn't
good.
meet the standards. It's not permitted as livable, bedrooms down in the basement.
Right, okay,
So it's permitted.
That's why, when in going through it, I wasn't positive, like, was this a legal place? It just is now condemned because of horrible living conditions and the leaks and the gas
Right.
stove, or was it an illegal apartment from the very beginning?
Yeah, it was an illegal apartment.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay, so can I get a motion to ratify the condemnation of the illegal basement apartment?
I'll make that motion.
Get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor by roll call vote. Meredith Lepre,
Yes.
Jim Cooper,
Yes.
Brooke Moore,
Yes.
Carrie McKenna,
Yes.
and Steve Visco says yes. Okay. Discussions of short-term rentals.
yeah, do you have the information? Did Roberto share that with you?
Yeah.
I believe
the
the
meeting next week.
regulations. Yeah. I don't have much information on this. To be
I
honest.
only have one question, just because I'm aware of one house that I'm actually a part owner in. And it's one of the intervals. And the thing is, when they list on Airbnb, it doesn't give an address because you don't want to do that until you complete the contract. And if we don't have, if a person doesn't have the registry number listed like they're supposed to. So Granicus finds this and says this might be, how do they know where the house is? I mean, how are they going to actually, they can say there's a house on Nantucket that isn't, we can't find a registry number, but we don't know the address. There's a couple of pictures from a window or something. So how are they going to notify us as to which house, how are they going to notify whoever in charge that we found this house that doesn't seem to be complying to the short-term rental regulations? And again, there might be some way, but I'm having trouble closing that gap.
Yeah, we
between,
should like bring this up next Wednesday with the joint
it was just
meeting.
like, I understand what they do, but is there a piece of technology that allows them to close that? Or are they it's like, well, if you find us, you caught us, but if you don't find us, we're okay.
Yeah,
So I'll bring it up next Wednesday.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's not that hard to figure out where the houses are.
I hope not.
So I just want to remind you, that there's next Wednesday,
Wednesday?
Yeah, it's going to be a joint meeting. I won't be here. I'll be traveling. So, but you guys will all be here.
Yeah.
With the select board, Wednesday, the 21st.
Okay. 4:00,
No, 5:30
5:30?
PM. Yep, regular select board meeting. I don't know where it sits on the agenda in terms of where it will fall. It's going to be a long meeting because we're doing the short-term rental appointments as well, the work group appointments. So,
Oh, yeah, for the committee.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll probably just come to the meeting.
Really?
No, I mean, show up physically.
Yeah.
Oh, you get, right, because you did the last time we had the joint meeting. So that's it on that. Let's see, does anybody have anything else they'd like to talk about? No? Meredith, you good?
I'm
Okay.
good.
Can I get a motion to adjourn then?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, Meredith?
Yes.
Okay. Jim Cooper,
Yes.
Brooke Moore,
Aye, yes.
and Carrie McKenna,
Yes.
and Steve Isco says yes. Okay, thanks everybody for coming. Great. It was a long one.
I wasn't going to say much.
No. Guy's ghosting it.